Hey everyone, Justin Worthy with the Top Calgary Real Estate Team and New Builds Calgary. Every week we aim to introduce you to somebody that can teach us something new and bring us value. So today I have the extreme pleasure of introducing my good friend Colin Showalter with Bliss Home Designs. And Colin has over 20 years of experience in the construction industry, and Colin's diverse expertise spans over luxury custom builds to inner city multifamily developments, and he's here to share his valuable insights. So let's dive into his journey and discover the critical aspects of construction and design that every buyer should know. So Colin, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. These are exciting topics for me, so happy to chat about them.
Awesome. So, Colin, question number one, what sparked your passion for construction during your time in engineering school?
I think growing up, I always kind of had my hand in construction a bit, helping my dad develop the basement in our house or, our vacation homes, needed renovations and those kind of things. So I always, kind of enjoyed being hands-on in those kind of things. The truth is I selected engineering school because I wanted to play football, and you couldn't play football without going to school. So in the end, I didn't play football and ended up in school because of it and whatever. So that's sort of how it kind of ended up in that path.
Cool. I love it. And how has your hands-on experience with renovations and product sales shaped your approach to your construction projects that you're a part of today?
Yeah, I think really that same concept that I kind of deploy here is the same that, for a lot of things is that, understanding how something works is the best way to understand how to make it work or how to, get it to work. So I like to kind of reverse engineer all these things is like, what is the goal at the end? This is where we want to go and how do we get there? And you kind of reverse engineer it and look backwards from like a top-down approach of saying, this is what we're trying to do. Because I understand like this is the goal as far as building something or the construction details and that sort of thing.
Cool. That's awesome. What is the biggest challenge in balancing architectural design with engineering practicality on a project?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a big challenge, right? Because an architect typically would say, our job is to design something that looks cool, and it's the engineer's job to figure out how to build it, right? But I think that having sort of an understanding of both sides of that really helps kind of balance within even the team and the clients and stuff is understanding what the architectural requirements are going to be, what the engineering requirements are going to be, and then what the client's requirements are, and sort of how all three of those things impact each other. So
awesome. Spoken like a true professional. So how do you approach design of a custom luxury home differently from multifamily developments?
Yeah, I think this really, again, it starts at the very beginning it's like, what are your goals here, right? You're coming to us to design, a 20-story tower or a single family renovation, right? So really, I think understanding what the goals are at the beginning is really important when it comes to design. From a client's budget during a luxury custom home, design is going to drive that, so understanding that is going to be important. Versus, multifamily, it's less budget and it's more cost, right? The time is money. The speed of that is more important sometimes than the creativity of the design. When you're looking at like a luxury custom home, clients they're in the market for designing a luxury custom home. This is their dream home. For a reason, right? They have potentially spent their whole lives thinking about this and saving for it. And, so it's a very emotional journey overall, where when you're looking at multifamily, whether it's, spec build to sell or purpose-built rentals, your approach overall is like, we want it to look awesome, but be cost effective and durable and those kind of things. So it is a totally different approach, but it really starts at the beginning. It's like, what are your ultimate goals? Are we looking at building a $5 million home, or are we looking at building multifamily for spec? Because your approach is going to be totally different from one to the other.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I love that. Thanks for sharing. What role does sustainability play in the construction projects you work on today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question. I think sustainability is sort of a word that's probably overused and misused a bit. I mean, by my definition, sustainability is that you're using as little resources as you can, to leave them for the next generation. Like whatever you're doing is sustainable, right? I think in general, the building technologies are getting better, where the buildings themselves are becoming more energy efficient. So, saving energy consumption is obviously a good place, but I think even some of the new technologies for even like heating systems and lighting, going from halogens to LEDs and those kind of things, right? So, it's little baby steps. I think each time there's technological advancements, and design can impact that obviously from solar strategies and those kind of things. But really, it's we're slowly advancing in the industry with technological advancements all the time. So
That's super interesting. How have construction materials and technologies evolved over your 20-year career, and what's been the most impactful change that you've noticed?
I mean, I'd like to say they've evolved really rapidly, and I would say that's true to some degree, but other things are a snail's pace as well. And for a variety of different reasons. But I look at back in probably the 80s, floor joists were made out of 2x material, right? Your 2x10, 2x12 for floor joists. Now we're seeing open webs or TGIs, like all kinds of different things. So structural products have really come a long way, I think, overall. And I mean, obviously energy efficiency and stuff too. It seems to be that the energy efficient products seem to be the slowest to get uptake because, I mean, let's just be honest, it seems like the public in general is willing to pay more so for, the sparkly granite than they are for an insulation upgrade. So, ideally that's not the case, but it seems to be the trend. So
Awesome. No, that makes sense. What are the key factors a buyer should consider when choosing between a custom build or potentially a pre-designed home or spec home from a builder?
yeah, I mean, again, it really comes back to what your goals are, what your budgets are, those kind of things, right? I mean, anytime you're doing anything custom means cost and custom means timeline. So if you're, less focused on cost and timelines, and you're more focused on getting every item on your wish list, well, you're looking at doing a custom design, right? But if you're looking at, getting in for DP, getting an investment property in the ground and getting cash flowing rentals or spec sale as soon as possible, well, you don't want to go custom because that's going to take longer and it's going to cost more money. So you want something that they can scale and start to get some cost effectiveness, creating affordability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that makes a ton of sense. I agree with everything you're saying there. Can you explain the importance of site selection and how it could potentially impact the overall success of a construction project as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends again on what your goals are. I mean, if you're designing a custom home, your site selection is obviously going to be pretty crucial because the home you can design is going to be limited based on the property you choose. So if we want a 3,000 square foot bungalow and the property only allows 2,000, well, that doesn't work, right? So those are pretty clear on the custom side. When you're doing spec, multifamily, purpose-built rental, those kind of things. The lot really can be crucial. What we're finding a lot in the city these days is that, the community associations are obviously starting to push back stronger than ever against multifamily development throughout the city. And they are relying on, caveats and covenants and, local area plans and all this kind of stuff to basically argue jurisdiction, that the blanket rezoning doesn't impact them and whatnot, right? So it really depends. The lot's going to depend on the neighborhood, all those kind of things. I always look at things like, are there, mature city-owned trees across the front of the property that are going to impact maybe access to a development or, those kind of things. Because, if there's a city-owned tree on your, front boulevard, your job as a developer is going to be to either protect it or replace it, and they can be quite costly. So things like that, site access, depending on the amount of units you need and the zoning you're going to be in, you're going to need a certain amount of parking requirement on the property that you have to accommodate. So whatever that is something that you want to kind of verify prior to jumping in. And the big one that can be expensive is if you have like power poles and guide wires and stuff across the back of the alley, that are going to limit access to the site. So if you do have that, you're likely going to have to move some of those things, adding cost and time. So those are the kind of things that I always look for when I'm advising clients on properties that are adequate for their project.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, what design elements do you focus on to create energy efficient homes? And the reason I'm asking this is because I'm finding more and more buyers that are coming to us that are saying, hey, how energy efficient is this home? And those types of questions are coming across our desk a lot. So from the ground up, what are you guys focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, like energy efficiency is a tough word as well, because like, are we talking about like the furnace, or are we talking about the windows? Are we talking about the exterior wall systems? Those kind of things. I know in BC they have a step code. So every house has to be built to a certain step. So likely what you're dealing with is like buyers that are educated with a different system. And so that house is like, hey, it's step code 5 or whatever within BC. That house now knows what it qualified under. So, we don't really do that type of labeling in Alberta. So it really is going to be client specific. I think on a custom home, clients are usually much more passionate about doing energy efficient elements in their home and whatnot. And a lot of the multifamily builds, we are doing rough-ins at least for solar panels on the roofs. Some builders are requesting to put EV chargers in the garages and those kind of things. So, it really depends on what you're looking at from energy efficiency. But like, again, a lot of the technologies within the exterior building materials are just improving all the time. So, it does kind of come down to the builder to select the right materials and that kind of stuff as well. So, yeah, we definitely can advise and help clients with that process too.
So I know that there's only a certain part of the building process that you guys are in charge of, obviously, but as we say with new construction, it's always very, very difficult to control the timeline. And it's also very difficult to control the budget per se. So when it comes to a design perspective, how do you guys kind of keep those two items in check? Do you utilize technology, or like what do you guys do?
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately design drives budget, right? Because there's a lot of things that are going to determine budget within design. It's the scope of the project, the size of the project, the complexity, the level of finishing. All of those things are going to affect budget differently, and timeline, right? So I think understanding those is crucial point of it, and having realistic expectations right from the beginning of what that timeline and budget should be is the best way to kind of manage those things and work backwards. Like, on a custom build, you say, okay, like a client, you have to have a targeted budget, because if the worst thing that could happen is you do this beautiful design, you take it to a builder and you find out you can't afford to build it. So, you kind of have to be cognizant of budget and timeline right up front and work backwards from there, to ensure you're designing something that is going to work for that. The other thing is it's setting expectations within design for a client. It's like, if you have $1 million budget to build, the grotto swim up bar in the basement doesn't fit in there, right? So if you think,
are you sure? Come on. We really want that grotto.
Well, then the budget goes up, right? It's not my job to tell clients how to spend their money, but it's understanding the impacts of their decisions on their budget, which I think is really important. I'm not here to tell clients how to spend their money, but if you are making one decision that's going to cost you this much money and you don't realize it, that's kind of a designer's job to advise clients throughout the whole process. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are the most common mistakes that you see clients make when they're planning sort of their dream home, and how do you think they could avoid those mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it comes back to budget, is not understanding costs, not understanding timelines, not understanding what is going into a custom home, right? And I think also just like listening to numbers. You sometimes hear people come and they're like, oh, a builder has been telling me it's $200 a square foot to build a high-end custom home. And it's kind of like, well, it could be, depends what we're building. And it reminds me of a story. I was at Vancouver Home Show one time and Brian Ballmer was the speaker. And he's like, I don't understand why people are always so sensitive with budget. He's like, budget is the most important part of this all. And he said someone asked him to go in their basement and say, hey, how much is it going to cost me to develop my basement? And he's like, what would you like to do down here? Like, we can make a grand central station, or we can put up 4 walls and some carpet. Clients think, oh, if we tell the builder or the designer a budget, they're going to blow the budget. Well, the budget is intended to be the most amount of money you're comfortable spending. So I think be realistic with your budget. Be comfortable with your budget. Like, if it gets to worst case scenario, that shouldn't be stressful because that's the budget range. When it goes outside of that is when it should be stressful, right? And so any initial due diligence should be realistic and I think properly planned for, and then you should have no issues going through making sure that you stay on design and timelines. So,
and then you can add the grotto if you're under budget.
There you go. Yeah, that's always an extra after. That's right.
Nice. Yeah. So what's the importance of working with both an architect and an engineer during the planning phase of a home?
Well, whether it's an architect or an interior designer, an engineer, or a real estate agent, working with professionals is how you make sure things happen the way they're supposed to happen. It's making sure that the I's and T's are crossed and dotted and whatever. Like anybody can draw a pretty picture, right? But is it bylaw compliant? Is it whatever else, budget, those kind of things, right? So I think creativity is one thing, but creativity with a purpose is a totally different approach. So that would be my answer there.
Awesome. How do you incorporate innovation and creativity while ensuring structural integrity and functionality in all of your projects?
That kind of goes back to an earlier question. Like the architect's job is to design a cool building, and the engineer's job is to figure out how to build it. I mean, I'm saying that a little tongue in cheek because, obviously the architect has to understand what capabilities or capacities of structural elements of what we're putting in this home are. So if we're using TGIs in the floor, we're not going to be able to support an elephant walking through, whatever, right? So it really depends on what you're trying to do. And I think again, it's a team approach on those. Is that understanding how do we make this look awesome but still be cost effective and obviously structural integrity. But when you get into the high custom world, this is where it always kind of blurs the line because you're always doing something that you may never have done before. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that's where the line gets a little blurred.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. It sounds like your job is really rewarding from that perspective where you can really, set expectations and make sure that you can get to work to exceed those. And in most cases that I've worked with you exceed those expectations. So kudos there for sure.
Yeah, cool.
So could you share a memorable project where the design significantly transformed the life or the living experience of the homeowners?
Yeah, you know what? I have a really cool story. I think it was 2015, roughly. Sales guys, we get calls all the time that are, not worth even answering the phone. So you kind of start to, filter those out pretty quick. When someone calls you, you kind of understand typically the age and demographic and this and that of someone that can afford a high-end custom home or who's looking for the whatever it is. But so anyways, I got this call from this lady and I feel like typically at the time, it was unusual for the wife to make first contact with a design team or builders or those kind of things. So right off the bat, you're kind of like, okay, this is unusual. And she was very soft-spoken and almost came across like a sad lady. And she was asking all the right questions though. So I was, the conversation keeps going. And anyways, the longer the story goes is that it turned out that her husband had just died in like a farming accident. And she was trying to execute the retirement plan and didn't know how. And she was just like, I just want to do this. I have a, and it was like this completely naive, had always probably had her husband, taking care of the bills and taking care of all these things her whole lives. And all of a sudden she has this like, traumatic event that changes everything. And she just wanted to roll up her sleeves and start doing it. And anyway, so we made it through this whole thing. She got to the point where she moved in this, and she was just like tears telling me I made her like dreams come true and stuff, right? And like I'm taking way too much credit for that because I just was the client kind of management there, but that was super rewarding in the sense that like I feel like initially I could have easily blown her off because it was not my typical client. And I also feel like if she got in the wrong hands, she was naive enough to get totally taken advantage of and not end up what she wanted and that kind of stuff. So I actually felt quite rewarding in the fact that I could just like take care of her and get her what she wanted. And she was so, appreciative and thankful for that. So that was a pretty cool, rewarding previous project.
Very, very cool. I love stories like that, man, where you make an impact on somebody's life. That's huge, and that's what it's all about. So
well, and we too often, I think, look at this as a job, and when we're looking at dream homes, there's so much emotion that we can't treat it that way because, like, again, everyone's got a story, whatever it was that got them to the place where they can afford a $3 million dream home, they've been through some stuff somehow along the way, typically, so it's a pretty fun experience overall.
Yeah, super rewarding. That's huge. What advice, I guess, on the other side of dream home, I guess, what advice would you give to first-time home buyers when considering either a new build or a renovation? Where would you suggest them to focus?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend obviously on the specific project, I think. In budget as well. You can do a reno for fairly cost effective, again, depending on scope, whereas a build is going to be quite a financial commitment. So, I think that is going to be a big dependent. Also the neighborhood, like I watched a couple of years ago, I was involved in a project in Renfrew, and, you watched like the neighbor just renovate a beautiful old house, and then the one next to them knock one down and build a brand new one. And like, immediately that renovation just kind of devalued because now if someone wants that street, they're like, I want the new house. You know what I mean? And now the value is the property, not the reno for that person. So I think it really depends on the community and the location.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And I think just to tack onto that as well is like, and for me, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, should I do a new build or should I reno? I often ask them a question like, what things in life do you value, right? And like, are you drawn to character, or do you want character? Do you mind a little bit more maintenance in an older home? Those sorts of questions as well too. So no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. So what's the role of technology in today's construction, and how do you feel it's changing the way homes are designed and built?
Yeah, I mean, probably not as fast or as strongly as it should be. In my mind, when we're looking at affordability and cost of construction and all these kind of things is pretty large issues. It's just like any other industry. You have to find a way to scale, right? Is how do we do, more for less kind of thing. And in my mind, it's not going to be finding more people that can hammer nails and one-on-one on site. It's just not going to be that way anymore. It's going to be like, hey, we send the architectural drawings to one of the truss suppliers and they computerize and send out a set of trusses. Well, there'll be a time when that's happening for walls, and I know it does, and sit panels and all that kind of stuff, but it'll be more mainstream, right? Because we have to find a way to reduce some of those labor costs. I think you're going to see some of those products, both as far as, we can produce this faster, quicker, less labor, but there's still a cost component they have to figure out on how do we bring that in the same, competitiveness as it would be anything else, right? And find a way to scale that. So,
yeah. Technology power over people power.
I think 100%. Yeah.
Working smarter instead of harder.
Factory produced, right? And it's like it's like an IKEA set. However, it's going to come together and it's going to be, there's a bunch of companies in town that do them commercially, whether it's like dirt panels and those guys, right? Is the walls are just roughed in, and then you get panels that come in and build the community or the inside. So I think that it's going to be more of that prefab stuff and more factory produced and assembly line stuff, and yeah, whatnot. So.
Yeah, it's exciting. It'll be a very interesting future for construction. Next question is, how do you manage client expectations, especially when working on larger scale or complex projects?
Yeah, I think communication and trust are just the rule of law across life, really. Like things happen, stuff goes sideways, stuff this. I think if expectations and all that kind of stuff are clear off the beginning, and as they evolve, they're not secrets, they're communicated and discussed and all that kind of stuff. I think, really that's kind of how that whole process should work, whatever industry you're on, is that dealing with clients and managing expectations is really just comes down to communication and trust, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And really just setting that out at the beginning. I love when you said that. That's so important. And so how do you foresee the future of construction and design evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, 10 to 20 years, and then in the next 100 years?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I feel like there's going to be an evolution towards more of a prefabricated or factory produced or some sort of scalable, and it'll be a slow process because, it took a while even for TGIs to enter the industry. It took a while for, triple pane windows to kind of be standard, and it slowly comes in. And so that's probably what the next 5 to 10 years are. You're going to see some probably jurisdictional increases on energy efficiency and energy usage and whatnot. So that will continue to evolve. It's going to be kind of a slow process. And I mean, at some point, I would imagine that, it would be kind of cool to see something like how you see in China, where it's like these just boom, boom, boom towers are up in 2 weeks if you need them up, right? So, throw enough resources at it and anything can happen in a hurry.
So true. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What's the one piece of advice you would give to buyers looking to either invest or purchase custom or multifamily developments in Calgary? And one sort of overarching piece of advice, if you will.
Yeah, like find a team of people you can trust. I think it goes back to those communication and expectations and that sort of stuff. Find a team of people you can trust. I think the worst thing you can do is keep everybody in silos and be like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, and try to piecemeal things, whereas everybody's not on the same page and they're not working together. I mean, you go to a dentist when you have a cavity, right? It's like you need a professional to take care of the things that are going to do it. And, so whether that's us or someone else, I think find a person or a team that you can trust that's going to be able to do these things. In today's day and age, the biggest thing that we're finding is that the cities and the communities, their scrutiny on every single development permit right now has been extremely elevated because of the sensitivity in the communities right now. And so if you have a design team that doesn't necessarily understand every single detailed intricacies of the bylaw, well, the city's going to keep throwing these back for DR1, DR2, DR3, DR4 until you get it figured out. And then, your investment property project drags out for the extra 6 months you don't need. Ideally, you want to have a submission on DP. You want to have, very little, if any, bylaw discrepancies that you have to kind of discuss. And, then you're kind of dealing with some minor items, pre-release conditions and whatever. So, I think finding a team you can trust is how you're going to have the most success for sure.
Yeah, no, that's massive. What, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think is the average days that it's taking right now to get a permit in and out of the city?
Well, the city says 100 days. I think it's starting to lag from there a bit longer, and I also think that will continue. We're seeing a big, not us specifically, but the city in general is seeing a huge uptick in appeals. So that's going to start to slow things down as well. It really depends on the project. If you're doing, a permitted single family in a, inner city community, it's turning around very quickly. But if it's discretionary, there's a lot of oversight right now from the communities and that sort of stuff. But Yeah, they're saying 100 days, and that's their target. So that's what they try to stick to.
Okay. What percentage of the permits are discretionary that are going through the city, and what are permitted? How many are permitted use?
Well, anything multifamily, row house, townhouse is discretionary.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, for the most part. And so single family and like semi-D duplex dwellings are the only thing that are permitted use on an RCG now, basically.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So if they want to go to highest and best use on any plot, it's taking an unnecessary amount of time.
I mean, unnecessary is not necessarily the word I would use, but it's taking more time than it previously had. I think previously, a corner lot RCG had permitted use townhouse. So that was clean and quick, which is why a corner lot had higher value previously. Well, now they're all the same as far as discretionary. So that's kind of one of the things, how things evolve, as properties and the zoning and some of those trickle down impacts of zoning changes. So,
yeah, very interesting. What else is affecting the process in Calgary right now that you're seeing as either a positive or a negative? And sorry, I know this is
I think it's yet to be kind of determined because I don't know that like the public quite understands the impact of that permitted use versus discretionary use yet. And it's because those, like, the bylaw changed August 6th. So a lot of those DPs haven't even worked through yet. So I feel like the learning curve for some developers are still yet to come. Yeah, it's going to be challenging for sure. I think, if I was looking at kind of, easiest, quickest development opportunities, going to see the least kind of pushback from communities is going to be like semi-Ds with suites all day long, I think, because that's a permitted use. And basically now, almost every city lot can have that, clean permits. So.
That's interesting. Could they also do side-by-side duplex with suite and a garage suite as well if they wanted to get to the 5?
As soon as you do the garage suite, it makes it discretionary.
Oh, okay. So anything over 5 units, basically, or 5 plus?
I mean, yeah, you could look at it that way, but it's not worded that way. But I guess that does hold true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And one last question. Could you talk to us a little bit about restrictive covenants and what those have been like navigating in Calgary as of recent?
Yeah, it really depends on what the restricted covenant is, the caveat, whatever. I've seen a variety of different ones. There was one recently we saw in Bowness that had something like 300 caveat holders on that title. So really that means you got to get your lawyer to go negotiate with each of those 300 landowners to get them to remove that off your title. So that can be challenging, but then there's other ones that just have one caveat holder, what was the original owner who subdivided that from their farm, in 1916 and said they wanted it as a single family neighborhood. A lot of times you can get your lawyer to have that one removed, fairly easily. It really depends because they are all specific legal terminology that is on your title. But I would highly advise anybody buying a lot for any purpose, even if you're buying it just to rent the existing house out, you still want to know if there's people holding, anything on your title. But yeah, so those are kind of hit and miss, depends on the title, depends on how many there is. And it's really like, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to give legal advice, but they can be a challenge, and they are a very strong tool for the community to say, you can't do that. It says right in your caveat. And there's not much other than that. You know what I mean? Like the city zoning might say you can build a fourplex on that lot. The caveat will override that always. So yeah, that's, and there's certain communities. I know I just heard that Lake Bonavista, and I think it's Britannia, that as a community association, they have blanket caveated every property in the community.
Wow.
So I believe the way it's written in Britannia's community association is that every single title that is in the community of Britannia cannot be subdivided or have more than a single family dwelling on it.
Wow, unbelievable. Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but don't quote me on the specific legal language, but and I know that it was just in the news last week that Lake Bonavista is trying to do the same thing. And I think they had like 1,500 signatures already. to agree to a blanket rezone. So, I mean, what's going to happen is that those 1,500 people are going to come together. They're going to go to a lawyer, and they're all going to sign each other's titles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sneaky, sneaky.
So that nobody can ever do anything on those properties at least, right? So, so I think it is a powerful thing. And I'm not trying to give anyone firepower tools, but those are some of them. What we're seeing is like they're from forever. Like was when someone subdivided the farm or whatever. You've seen some in Bowness that say they can't have liquor stores or biker headquarters. And it's whatever. So they're all for a specific purpose. They wanted to keep the specific integrity of the community at one point in time. Some of them are stale, and need to be removed, and some of them have a purpose. So.
Okay. One last question, sorry, that just came up, and I was wondering what else should people be looking for from a design perspective to look out for, instruments on title or on the real property report, or those sorts of things that can play sort of a pivotal role in the design or what you can build on a plot of land?
Well, I think the best way to look at that would be like if you look at like a contextual permit for say a single family or a semi-D. Well, contextual permitted use, it basically the parameters of design are controlled by your neighbors, not the bylaw, right? And so what it means is that you have a maximum of 11 meters in height. But what happens to meet contextual, you have your neighbor's heights averaged and adding 1.5 meters on them, and that's your max now. So they're trying to like step up the streetscape where it's not like one drastic, so if you have 2 bungalows beside you, you're going to get less height than you would if you had 2 new developments beside you. Same thing with setbacks. When you look at like a streetscape, there's a reason that most of the houses are pretty close to the same distance from the street. When you're building new, you get the neighbors and you can kind of average the 2 and add the 1.5 meters to those again. So that's kind of how they balance the street and opposed to using the bylaw specifically.
Awesome. That's great. Well, you're an abundance of knowledge and information as always, Colin. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with us and chat and give us a bunch of great and valuable insight. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. So you betcha. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again.
Hey, thanks, Justin.
Like, follow, and subscribe. Whether you're a homeowner, a first-time buyer, a seller, an investor, or a home builder, we've got tips, insights, and strategies that you need to succeed. Like this video, follow us for updates, and hit that subscribe button with a notification bell so you never miss our latest content. It's free, and it helps us bring you even more valuable knowledge. Your next big real estate move starts right here. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.